If you've ever been out at a bar or a festival around Detroit and the music's pumping and the light show's going and there's a guy on the side of the stage with one of the strangest looking instruments you ever saw, then you've experienced the man sitting next to me, Robert Bird, better known as Light Show Bob. Thanks for sitting down and talking. How did you get started doing lights for music?
I used to hang around with a buddy of mine's band called Saddle Tramp in Detroit. And I was kind of like their guard dog. When they load their cars and stuff, I'd watch their cars so they could load their cars and stuff.
Ah, awesome.
And I was hanging out one night with the band, and they didn't have their lead singer. And a guy named Rob Floyd was playing guitar. It was at Jesse's Hideout on 8 Mile. And he was trying to sing Full for Your Stockings by ZZ Top. And he was having a hard time playing and singing, so I just got up there and sang it. Everybody's like, wow, that's great, more. And it's like, well, that's all I got, you know? So he says, look, man, this is, next week, I'm going to this place called Robin Hood's. It's a little biker bar. He says, it's a State Fair an hour drive. We have a jam session. He says, come with me and I'll play that song. You sing that song. Jam session. Okay, you know. So I go and I sing this song, and this guy there walks up and says, hey man, who do you sing with? I said, the radio? He says, look, here's a list of like 6 or 7 songs. Learn a couple of them. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I'll play and you sing them. So I did Tush by ZZ Top. And I already had Full for Your Stockings down. And I did It's All Right Now by Free, and I did Mary Jane's Last Dance. And it did all right, not really well. I mean, I've never sang before. And I became like a matinee item. I would blow in and I'd sing a set of music with the band, and I'd go see the results and sing another set of music. Well, I was with Jeff Malin in the Bad Passion Band at the end of the Park Bar, which is a park that doesn't exist anymore. It's a dispensary now. And we brought a rack with 4 lights in it. We plugged all 4 lights into the power strip. We walked away. I'm like, how do we work to this? So I built a dimmer box with 4 dimmer switches and 4 outlets in the cord, and a couple little cables to run each light. And I just would fade the lights back and forth while I was running sound and hanging out and waiting to sing. Well, it's like, okay. So I built a bigger board and had 2 separate power supplies on it. There's a cat named Bruce Siebert. Well-known guitar player, session player here. He played with Savoir Faire and R.J. Spangler and all them guys. He's still around. He's in the band tours occasionally and stuff. And he sat down next to me and turned the power off to half the board. I didn't see him there. I just turned the power back on and kept doing my thing. Well, the third time the power went off, I looked over and there he is. I'm like, how long have you been here? He says, about 25, 30 minutes. At that moment, I knew I was destined to be a light show guy, because I'd never been able to use that much of my brain power and concentrate that hard on something and not know he'd been sitting there. So there was a band called the Ricky Lenz Band, who's since passed away, but they went to his dad's warehouse and he said, look, we got some lights for you. They dig out this big, huge piece of steel strut with 12 sockets on it, and a big box and a 220 plug, and the switches are hard to turn on and off. And I get it over to my house, and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this thing? It's like huge, bulky. So I cut the box off of it, and I built a crude lightar, and started out with 12 individual lights. It was just hardwired to this thing.
Yeah, and that was the first iteration.
That was the first, and I still got that in my shipping container, intact. I haven't gutted it for parts. I've been tempted to, but I haven't. So I was loading this light rack in the Club Bart on Woodward Avenue, 9 Mile, and I scratched the ceiling. And I was pissed because I fixed it. You know, I'm a retired master carpenter and builder, so I knew what I was doing. I fixed it, but I was pissed. So I cut the rack of lights off, and I put a box of outlets on the end, and that's how the light tower was born. There's always wanted something like when the band was playing that I could just rip loose if a mic stand fell over or something, or drum was something I could just go take care of something and not stop the light show, you know.
Now at this point, you hadn't earned the nickname Light Show Bob yet.
Well, there's a funny story on that one. I was running around with a band called Dashboard Jesus. The drummer's name is Jeremy Knaps. Well, Jeremy now plays in Dumpster Machine. He plays drums for Tino, Martin Gross, and Dumpster Machine. Well, I was hauling their gear in my little one-ton dump truck. Like I hauled their gear to Harson's Island and all kinds of places, and they call me Dump Truck Bob. Well, Jeremy says to me, he says, look, we can't call you Dump Truck Bob. You do light shows for us. We'll call you Light Show Bob. That was 27 plus years ago. The next day I went to my business cards, and the name just stuck. Now, for many, many years, nobody knew me in anything but my stage name. Facebook changed all that, and they put my real name without my permission. They put my real name on my Facebook account. How they got my real name, I don't know. I never gave it to them. But you know, that's
everyone pretty much knows it as Light Show Bob.
Yes. So. But that's how it started.
Now the lights are, I mean, even what you're doing now, this isn't something with a bunch of low voltage switches that operate a controller. You have 120s strapped around your neck.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't try this at home.
Yeah, right. Unless you're an electrician, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I pushed up to 30 amps through that at times, maybe a little more here and there. The Dally and the Alley is one of the bigger shows I do, and that's where I have pushed the most maximum wattage through it as with the Dally.
In fact, the first time I met you, we were playing at Arts Beats and Eats in Pontiac upstairs.
Oh yeah, Griff's Grill.
It was probably about 120 degrees there. And if I understand correctly, you actually got a little bit of a jolt from that thing.
Yes, sir. One of the band members from the Bowls Paper band brought a cooler in. It was leaking. And the place was so packed, I couldn't hardly move around. It was leaking under my feet. It was so hot, I sweat so much. The sweat ran into one of my contacts and literally lit me up. I threw the lighter on the ground. And I went to my console to run my other lighting, and I take my foot once in a while, tap it to see if I get a light to come on. So they finished the set, and the lead guitar player from, I think it was the Loose Stools, said, hey, Light Show Bob, that was really cool. You need to do that more often. I looked at him and said, dude, I about died, man. It was so hot. I would go outside, I could wring my t-shirt out, and I could literally make a whole 4x4 section of concrete sidewalk wet with my t-shirt. It was that hot and crazy of a gig. And that is the closest I've came to taking myself out with the lighter.
Yeah.
It zapped me really good. Now I've been zapped other ways since then, construction related, one time really bad. Worse than that, but that was a good one.
And you do have a couple of LED lights now, but you're still doing the
incandescent.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. Unless you have super high-end LEDs, there's a latency for the shut-off and fire-up time. There's a delay. My timing is so millisecond that delay will show up in what I do. Yeah. I can't do what I do with the everyday LEDs. It's just that the reaction time's not there.
And probably the same thing if you had a low voltage controller.
Yes and no. They've gotten better with these LEDs. And what it is a little capacitor has to charge up before it gets enough energy to fire up to excite the gas. Now they've made capacitors that are just fully charged the whole time, so it doesn't have, they've cut down that lag time on it. They've gotten better.
And unlike some of the touring light show acts that have everything choreographed out so they can pre-plan all of that and program it, you're just working with the feel of the music and a lot of times stuff that you have not heard before.
Oh yeah.
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 So you are really doing a performance.
I call it performance-driven lighting.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not taking nothing away from the guys. They spend hours and hours pre-programming all that lighting and setting all that stuff up, and they do some really cool stuff with it. Now, one thing they do that I would never do is they have a tendency to try to blind the audience with lighting sometimes, and I try not to do that. I don't think that's necessary to put on a good show.
You don't own a 1,000 watts follow spot.
I actually do.
Oh, you do?
I
Okay.
do. It only comes out in really big shows. But I do own a 1,000 watt follow spot. It's an old 1960s follow spot. It came from the Ann Arbor Civic Center Theater in Ann Arbor.
Got a little history.
I was the last light show ever there. They cut the power to the place the next day and demolished it. I think it's a YMCA in this place.
Oh, wow.
And midway through the show, I had some of my gear I wasn't using. And somebody thought of stuff that they were getting rid of. They took my gear. And I had to they returned it to me. I had to walk to a car with it and get a couple milk crates worth of extension cords that they thought was, they didn't know. I wasn't mad at the guy. They just didn't know. They thought the place was getting in. They didn't know. So at the end of the night, the head guy that was booked me and all that, he says, look, he says, see all this lighting hanging out here? I said, yeah. He says, you want it? Oh, what? He says, you want it? He says, take it. You can have it. This place is getting demolished tomorrow. They left it behind. So I got a bunch of, they're called Nikos at the time. They're this really weird, really old school lighting, really big, huge filaments. They're kind of badass, but they're really, really old stage kind of lighting. I got that and some part cans, and I got this follow spot out of the deal. Nice. And I still have the follow spot. Now, I trashed all the Nikos and scrapped them. In retrospect, I wished I had done that because they're taking this very same lighting now and they're retrofitting with LEDs, and they're using it because they're so cool looking. They use them in architectural decoration, with the updated LEDs. They're not the old
How would
school.
you have known, though?
Yeah, I had no clue.
Yeah.
They were just a bunch. I was moving, and it was a bunch of extra crap, and I had a place to put it. And they were hard. They got hot. They were hard to work with, and I was killing the bulbs.
And you only have so much space on the lightar.
Well, and those wouldn't even go on the lightar. Those were for my bigger shows, for my flooding lighting. Along the lightar, a lot of shows I'll run a bank. I'll run a bank of colored floods just for the flood the stage versus the performance stuff. And other things, I had lasers and some Chevette lighting, and maybe a Chevette and some moving headlight stuff. I have a lot of that to supplement, and a lot of that's really old school too.
Yeah. The lightar is on the third generation.
Third generation.
Yeah. And did you build all three of those yourself? You had a little bit of help there?
I had a little bit of help when it came to the multi-plug that I used, the coupler. One of my electrician's friends, Scott Robinson, he helped me with that. But beyond that, all the stainless steel I fabricated, the third generation is made of a piece of cypress wood. A buddy of mine in Florida, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, cut a log out of a swamp and he dropped it to the end of my dad's driveway. My dad milled it into a blank. First he chainsawed the blank and then he milled it into a blank on the shop smith that was my grandfather's. And it sat around my house, And then when I got to the studio, my number two was getting pretty beat up. I said, I got to do something. I got to make a lightar out of this. And that's when I made the one that I have now.
So the actual piece of wood has history all by itself. Speaking of history, when you go to the shop, there is just a treasure trove of curios hanging in the shop. And nearly all of that stuff is things that you have collected, isn't it?
Yeah, about 3/4 of it is stuff that I've collected over the years. It started at 7 years old. My friend Scott, that I've known since I was 6, I was living in Dunedin, Florida at the time. He lived up the street. The neighbor was throwing away a bunch of 78 record albums. So naturally, most of them just became frisbees. We flew them into the wall, But there was a picture disc. It's called a Vogue record that was amongst them. And it's Art Mooney and his orchestra. And on one side, it's got a big picture of his orchestra. On the other side, it's got a picture of a couple dancing on a rock in the middle of the street, like kind of thing. At 7 years old, I thought it was really cool, so I saved it and I kept it. And I've been carrying it around with me since I was 7. Years later, forward to 1990 when I moved here, just a couple years after I was here, I had a curio cabinet, and I pulled it down and started looking at it. It turns out it was made by Safeway Industries, Woodward Avenue, Detroit.
Right here.
I brought it back. I brought that and a half a six-pack of Faygo back from Florida when I moved here.
Also, some of the photos that you have hanging in the hallway when you're walking into the shop, that's all stuff that was hanging on the walls of the attic bar.
Yes, I'm really the caretaker of that. I want to get with the Motown Museum, get ready to do a big addition. I want to see if I can work out something to do a section on the blues in Detroit, because that will be the basis of a section about the blues in
That would
Detroit.
be excellent.
Like I say, I'm merely the caretaker. Now, my business partner, Mike, he's the historian. He knows all about almost all those people in the pictures, more than I will ever know. And he's the historian on them, so if they do go for something like that, he's going to have to take each picture and type up or write up what he knows about it so they can put it on display. It's cool that my people get to see them. It's cool that they're here, but I want them to get seen by the wider world. I believe they deserve to be someplace better than in the hallway of my studio.
You used to tend bar at the attic bar, and that's how you ended up.
Well, and I booked the bands for a while.
Okay.
Also, prior to tending the bar, my light show was there for 4 to 5 years before that as a resident light show guy. And I just made some chump change on it. Wherever the bands would kick me, I never got paid by the band, by a bar. I might get a drink or two here and there at the bar. It started out with Thornetta Davis. My buddy, Detroit Video Man, says, "Hey, look, Thornetta's playing at displays. You should go see if you can get your way in there with your light show." And at the time, the bar was kind of, it was waning. And the owner's like, "Well, hell yes, bring your light show here. We'd love to have you. I can't pay you. I'll give you a few drinks or whatever. You can get some tips from the band or whatever. I can't just flat out pay you. We just don't have it. We barely pay the bands." Fine. I brought it in. And I did every Wednesday for years. And it felt like going to church when I did a show with Thornetta. I could have the worst month, worst week going. When I walked out at the end of that, I was
flying high.
Yeah, I was much better.
And the Butler twins were playing at
the Butler twins,
back
Uncle Jesse.
Uncle Jesse White. In fact, the piano that you have in the shop, is that the same?
No,
that's not the same.
There's
piano.
a little separate history on that. It's got some history. Yeah, I got to work with Duke Dawson. I got to work with Uncle Jesse, the Butler twins, Odell Williams, Joe Weaver, Alberta Adams. I got to hang out with Kenny Martin, all the Huey Reese, all the really greats of the blues world in the day. I got to hang out with those guys, and they do shows with them. Like Uncle Jesse was always a 4-chord progression, kind of slow. It was kind of boring, but I always did it because I knew this man is part of the history of this whole thing, and he's not going to be around forever. And so I wanted to do good for him. He's gone, but I wanted to honor him by doing, and light shows for blues bands of that kind of nature, they're few and far between because it's harder to do a light show for something that's slow versus something that's fast. Because when your timing's got to be much better, you've got to be more appropriate as what you place the lighting and how you place the lighting.
And less can be more.
Exactly, and it's harder because now you're dealing with bigger spaces in between the hits, which means your timing's got to be better because you're dealing with a bigger space. Time,
But with all of that exposure to the blues scene and the fact that you have been working with the blues for all of this time, you recently actually got recognized by the Detroit Blues Society just last year.
Yeah, I got their non-musician lifetime achievement award thing from them. It was a total surprise. They kept it a secret from me, and Mike Rembar kept texting me, making sure I knew where the parking was because he knew that I was going to be in the blues cruise, And like my wife will have nothing to do with my music business. A lot of people don't even believe she exists hardly. Okay, she was on it with me, and I'm trying to just kind of be incognito because she's not big on people and all that. And the bands will separate when I hear Robert Berg's the stage. I'm thinking, They must be having an electrical problem or something, because they're using my real name. Something's up, you know. So I figure I'm gonna go up there and figure out how to fix their problem. And they're like, oh, by the way, Light Show Bob, we're here to award you this award. I'm like, you know, totally caught me off guard.
That was probably a welcome surprise.
Oh, very much welcome. So.
And it was well earned.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
It's ironic that my wife is with me there, because all my life I said I would never date a woman I met in a bar because of work in the bar, right? I was in the attic bar one afternoon. I was doing maintenance on my lighting, cleaning and rearranging and stuff, just doing maintenance. And I seen this girl sitting there, a little beautiful little black girl in a little blue dress in the bar. And I just said hi, being sociable, you know, not looking for whatever, just being sociable, being myself. And I said, look, you know, Cornetta's playing here. If you tell Rosie at the door that you're here from Light Show Bob, if you want me to pay cover, come check me out, check out Cornetta. She says, okay. Well, that night Cornetta's playing, I'm there. I couldn't see past the lighting off the stage because of the way the lighting was. You couldn't really see into the band room a lot. Separate, I come off the stage, she stands up, she says, aren't you going to come say hi to me? I said, I'm sorry, I couldn't see, I didn't know you were there. We ended up going and having breakfast at the Block restaurant afterwards.
Oh, nice.
And after my third time having breakfast with her, I walked her back to her van, she laid a big old kiss on me.
Ah.
And then about 4 or 5 days later, she showed up at my house and we started officially dating.
Nice.
And it was always weird for me because I felt like the goofy-ass white guy with the hot-ass African-American girlfriend. She was a little hard body, you know? And it's like, oh, how did I do this? Is, you know, how did I do this, you know? And I was worried about it somewhat because 20 years ago, 21 years ago, it was not socially acceptable widely to be an interracial couple. And I was talking to one of the musicians, one of the older black guys I know, and he says, look, man, he says, those lines have been erased and blurred in the music world for a long time. He says, if anything, when you show up and do it on your shoulder, people are going to say, Light Show, and you got going on. And it changed my attitude towards that. And I've had incidents over the years, but I love my wife to death. And she's the total opposite of me. You'll never see her on my show. Once in a while she'll come out to the event, but she lets me do what I want to do. I might have an opportunity to go on tour. As long as the bills are paid, and if there's a problem at the house, I can send somebody to take care of a problem, if it's a mechanical or whatever problem at the house, she's fine with it. Because she knows that it's all my life. I wanted to go on a real tour, you know, not just a day or two or a week, or I'll talk a couple months.
So with this background that you have, you're actually starting to work on documenting it and putting a book together.
Yeah, I'm about 60 handwritten pages into it. I do a brief synopsis about how I came to Detroit, how the Light Show came to be, and how the Lightars kind of developed. I didn't put too much of my personal life in there, more just about the Light Show. And I'm in the process of writing chapters about the different shows, and different bands, and the things I've experienced with the different bands over the years. Just the sheer craziness. I just write it down as it happened. Now, I don't add anything, but there's some things I cannot in the book. I'll leave that up to you. You know, I mean, the closest thing I have that's probably MA, or you know, I'm not gonna say X-rated, or maybe R. Okay, I'll share this one with you. I used to do a rock festival, and we had a backdrop, and it was an old billboard. It was a PT Cruiser, and this one band wanted to come out of the Cruiser and onto the stage. Well, behind the backdrop was just a bunch of tools and a bunch of crap piled up with my buddies to make room for the stage for the show at this place. And I had my briefcase stashed underneath the stage. And I had my passes and my tickets and money and all that stuff in it. Well, I go bopping back there to get into my briefcase, and this guy's going after this chick back here. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not mad at you. It's rock and roll.
It was the back seat.
It's the backstage. I mean, it literally was the backstage. Not, you know, it wasn't meant for anybody to be back there. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not mad at the guy. Whatever. You know, I just backed out of there. So the band's playing. The lead guitar guy fries his hand. literally the voice cone starts smoking.
That's not good. It's not good when you let the smoke out.
Yeah, so they're doing an amp changeover, and the drummer's sitting there on his drum kit. And I said, hey man, look inside that PT Cruiser and see if somebody's in there. He said, what do you mean look inside it? I said, there's a slit in the door. Put your head in there and see if somebody's in it. He said, what are you talking about? I said, look, just open the slit, put your head and tell me if there's anybody in there. Now, the audience didn't know what was going on, but my staff, they all knew what was going on. He sticks his head in and here, ooh, ah, ee. He looks at you, go back, yep, there's somebody in there. Now, my crew, we're damn near rolling on the ground laughing because we know, well, because I had to get back there eventually. We know what he just saw. And that's as far as I'll go into the R-rated version of my time as a light show guy and things that I've seen. I've seen much more than that, but I can't put that stuff in the book or discuss that.
Well, you could. You just have to put the disclaimer on the cover.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd have to conceal my identity. And the identity. Because I used to have an old green motorhome tour bus. And there's some craziness that took place in that thing that I can't put in the book. And I'll leave it to your imagination. It was just a big, huge box on the inside with a big, huge couch. It had this big, huge back door on it.
So as far as motorhomes go, now if you come to the shop often, you'll see one of two travel trailers back there. One of them, we have Airstream sitting right over here to our right. That's got a little bit of history to it, doesn't it?
Yes, that came from my dad. It's a 1956 Airstream. I haven't here lately because I'm busy, but I used to take it even on my local shows. I would take it, especially after COVID, because I'm not a drinker and I'm not a bar person per se, and I want to be in with a bunch of drunk people spitting and talking loud, in my face and all that. So set break, that's been my place to escape. When I do go do overnight shows, that's my home away from home when I do overnight shows. It went to Myrtle Beach with me for Sister Otis. I had a 5-day stint with her in Myrtle Beach during Bike Week. And I got a truck from Penske. They cut the price in half to sponsor me with a rental.
Right.
And the Airstream had a 2 5/16 hitch on it. The truck had a 2-inch and it's welded to it. So I took a Reese hitch, another Reese hitch that I had laying around, and I bolted it to the back of their truck and put the 2 5/16 on it and hauled the Airstream to Myrtle Beach with me with this big truck.
It's probably not DOT approved.
No, it wasn't. It worked, but it wasn't. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. It was safe. But before it all happened, when she first told me, I wasn't sure how I was going to do this. I have a good friend of mine who owns a company called Shazano Coffee. They're in Berkeley now. They used to be in Ferndale. Jewish business guy. His name's Frank. Great guy. And I went to him. I said, look, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really want to do this, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. He says, look, I'll get you started. He says, I'll give you 5 pounds of coffee, 2 French presses, the pile of my business cards. All I ask is you share my coffee and the business cards and everybody you possibly can and give me some business on the internet.
Right.
He says, you talk to your friends. Your friends will help you. You'll get sponsors. You'll figure it out. He says, if you don't go and do this, all your life you're going to wonder what it would have been like. So that's exactly what happened. People gave me money to help me get there. I hauled my attorney's motorcycle there so he could ride in Bike Week.
Right.
There's a little side story to that one. And my mom and stepdad drove up from Florida and got a hotel so they could be there each day and each night to see the show and hang out with me.
Awesome.
And I was about 30 feet from the main drag in Merrill's Inlet, just down the street from the Suck, Bang, Blow bike park. And it was Bike Week. It was huge. Now, what we didn't know is there's a regular Bike Week and there's a black Bike Week.
Oh.
My attorney's black.
Ah.
He didn't know this. We didn't know this. I mean, there was black people there. He still rode it and stuff like that. So every day I had lunch with my mom, my stepdad, and my attorney. The little restaurant right behind the bar. They had really good seafood, cheap. We're hanging out, and the bar owner, she's out there, And she's talking to my mom, and she says, my mom says, does your son always take his attorney with him? My mom says, yeah, bigger shows in case somebody has a contract he wants to look at. This woman looked at my mom like, who the hell is this guy from Detroit? In the end, okay, let me backtrack a little. On the way there, we're about 5 or 7 miles out, and I see this big anvil head thunderstorm. And I told my buddy, I said, that looks like it's right where we're going. Sure enough, it dropped like 3 inches of rain in 1 hour. It flooded everything out. There was bikes flooded, everything. It was rained so hard, we drove past the bar because we couldn't see the sign for the rain. We finally find the bar. The parking lot is about 24 inches deep in water. There's 4x4s and landscaping timbers floating around. The stage is only sticking 6 inches up out of the water. I literally took my shoes and socks off, rolled my pants up, and walked into the bar. Now, before all this, I had a guy in the back of the truck who calls me up and says, hey man, when are you going to let me out of the back of the truck? I said, well, when the rain mellows out. I said, you need to be careful because you're not in a steel truck. It's a fiberglass roof. It's thunder lightning here. You might want not really fall. He said, yeah. About that time, the lightning struck like across the street. Oh, kaboom! He says, okay, I'm getting off the phone. So it starts to rain even harder, and it starts to hail. I called him back up. He says, why you call me? I said, look, get someplace in the truck where nothing's going to follow you, because if I got to move this travel trailer, I got to find some trees or something to get under and protect it from the hail. I don't want the hail to number 56. He says, okay, well, the hail stopped. I finally got out, and I went wading into the bar, and I'm like, we're setting up outdoor here, and they're like, yeah. I dropped my scalping from my light tower off to where it's going to go, and it's underwater, literally.
That has to be a little unnerving, knowing that you're going to be plugging a bunch of electricity into it.
So I backed the big truck up, and we pulled the ramp out onto the stage, and we loaded everything onto the stage, including my attorney's motorcycle. Because we had to get it out of the way to get to everything else that was packed around it. And people are coming by asking if it's for sale, all kinds of beautiful Harley Davidson heritage, really nice bike, We ended up doing the show indoors that night. The next night we set up outside and everything. It was a really cool show. I was staying in a hotel with the band. My 2 roadies were staying in the Airstream. They had this big leather couch we brought with us and shit. And I was riding my bicycle back and forth from the hotel because all we had was this big truck. Well, there's a bike wash going on in between the bar and the Airstream. So all day my guys, they're sitting there. My one guy, VJ Strokenfold, he's over there interviewing the girls as they're washing motorcycles. These classic stuff. They were just loving it, And the last night I was there, I decided to ride my bicycle the back way instead of down the main roads. And I had a little tailwind. That's like, it's nice, check it out, Well, I said, I wonder how far I am. I better get back to Main Road. Well, I make my way back to Main Road, and I'm about 2 miles past the hotel. It starts to thunder, lightning, and rain. Here I have been riding my mountain bike into the rain, the thunder and lightning. I finally get to the hotel room. Sister Otis, and they looked at me and said, Lightship Bob, what the hell happened to you? I looked at him and said, I made a wrong turn to Albuquerque. The next day, we packed up, we loaded up, and we're about 3/4 of the way back. And I was getting road weary. You know how you get hard to focus and stuff when you've been driving so long.
Yeah.
So I pulled off in a rest area, and I told Jimmy Custer and my roadies, look, I need to get about 20 minutes of rest here. Just 20 minutes. And oh no, I got to get back to you. I got to go. I'll drive, okay? So I go back in the back of the truck, lay down, and let him drive. And I know I'll fall asleep. I hear horns honking, people screaming and yelling, shit's moving around in the truck. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I thought somebody might have stole the truck for a minute, Finally, we get to Hazel Park, and my other buddy opens the door. He says, well, your nightmare ride is over. I said, what the hell? He says, don't ever let him drive the big truck in. He says he almost took the Airstream out. He ran somebody off the road. People were screaming at him. I said, I was wondering what was going on. I thought somebody stole the damn truck from me. I didn't know what I was going to face when I opened the truck up. And that was my return trip from my sister Otis adventure. And it was fun. I had a really cool room. There's like all these rooms around the common area, And I shared a room with DJ. She took one bed and I took the other bed because we both snored.
Oh,
That way, the bathroom we had a whirlpool tub in it. So I made myself a drink. I filled that tub up. I'm sitting there drinking my drink. I'm like, if this is the life of a rock star, man, I love it. My stage, I live for my stage time. And I was like, this is the shit. I was really happy that I made the journey.
cool.
That's my synopsis. you can read about when my book comes out more detail. There's much more there than that. Yeah.
So in addition to doing, certainly the shop, you have a regular deal that goes on at Max Dugan, but you're for how you do Dally in the Alley.
Dally in the Alley is to be my 23rd year doing the Dally.
That's a pretty good run.
Yeah. Oh yeah. At one point, I got fed up in Detroit in my younger days. I put my house in the market. I was looking at houses back in Brooksville, Florida, where I'm from. I almost moved. My buddy, Detroit Video Man, took me down to the Galley during the day, and they had this little stage and had no lights. He says, you need to talk to the Galley manager, see if they want a light show. He says, I bet you I'll let you bring your show in. So I asked him, he says, sure, man, bring it in. So I hustled up at home, I gathered up my road gear, and I got down there, and I set up a little light show on the Alley stage. And after that, I just kept coming back year after year. Well, about 4 years into it, the woman that owned the property where the stage was, she was always just really mean to me. I tried really hard to please this woman. I'm a pretty fish guy. And no matter what I did, there was always something wrong. The last year I was there on that stage, she complained that too much light was coming across the stage onto her porch of the house that she owned. And the next year, about 3 days before showtime, I get a call from the Galley. I said, look, you can't do a light show on the garden stage. That woman forbids you to be on her property.
Oh.
I'm like, oh, this sucks. I said, well, let's move the stage. So, well, we can't do that. They said, look, we'll move you over to the Alley stage. I said, oh, okay, cool. Put the phone on. Oh, crap. I need more gear. So my birthday falls in the Alley. This is before the Facebook thing. I called up all my friends and I said, look, my birthday falls in the Alley, I'm having a set-up party. I said, if you want to give me anything for my birthday, either lend me or buy me, preferably dark green or black extension cords, because I just got moved to a bigger stage. I frantically went to work repairing every last light that I owned at the time, getting everything up that I could possibly get up and going to do this bigger stage, and I pulled it off.
Now, you have a fairly extensive truss system that you...
For my outdoor show, yeah.
And is that a result of getting moved up to the larger stage at the Dally, or did...
It's just a kind of accumulation over time. During COVID, this is when I still had a little more money in my life. All these people kept coming with this lighting to me, offering to sell me this lighting for next to nothing. In a lot of cases, I've been gifted a lot of lighting. With the advent of the LED lighting, a lot of people have been ditching all this incandescent lighting.
Yeah.
Because for heat reasons, this and that and the other. Well, everybody just keeps bringing it to me. So I just keep stockpiling it, taking it. Like I said, the Lightar doesn't run well on LED. It needs the incandescent to do what it does. So I know this is incandescent is going to be rare and rare as time goes. So I accumulate quite a bit of lighting that way. I've bought some truss over time. I've bought some used lighting. I've bought a couple, like my one LED I bought brand new. I bought a laser brand new back in the day, and then like a disco ball. But almost all my other equipment I've bought secondhand or in a pawn shop, or I've built myself. I got some of my lighting consists of coffee cans and juice cans. And you know what? I wish I had about 5 more units just like it, because I got bulbs in there I haven't changed in 10 years. The colored floods in it, and they work without fail. Wow. They're compact, they pack well, they hang where I need them, and they don't weigh a ton.
You have a disco ball hanging here in the shop.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a separate one that you bring?
I used to have one.
Yeah.
I had the one hanging shop was my one that got beat up and was junky, and I just hung it there to use it for whatever to hang, retire it. The one that I was using, I was loading my truss one time, and it did a little like this, and the cord came out and it came crashing to the ground in the studio on the floor.
They don't like to fall, do they?
No. A million little mirrors on the ground. I was happy. And I know this sounds strange, but I was happy that it happened where and when it did. Because if it dropped on somebody or something like that, that would not.
Yeah.
I'd rather just be out the ball and pick up the mirrors and throw the pieces away versus having it land on somebody or something. Because it was a newer, not so great, disco ball.
I think when you use the disco ball in the shop, I don't think a lot of people pay that much attention to how you're operating that. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you rigged up to do the disco ball?
I have a little piece of string to it, and I have it hanging from a piece of cable, and I use it like a pendulum instead of rotating. And it catches people off guard all the time. Because a lot of people don't look up to pay attention to what's going on.
Exactly.
And when they look up and they see the thing swinging, they're going, their minds don't quite compute what's going on here. And then when I put the light on it, then it becomes apparent what I'm doing. Because it's a different effect.
It is. It's an entirely different use of a disco ball. And I don't think many people realize that effect is.
But you could do that with one.
Yeah.
With me, it was just, I can swing this thing and make the light go different directions. Hey, let's do this. As with a lot of my home-built lighting has been over the years to get the effects I wanted. I didn't have the money to buy the expensive stuff, so I built stuff that was different, Or I adapted other things to use in the light show.
Well, I'm sure a lot of those things are going to make it into your book at some point.
At some point,
yeah.
At some point, I have to write a chapter about the acquisition of the lighting. Now, it's in there about the big truss, because that's how it all started with the big piece of steel unistrut, 12 bulbs. That started it all.
Well, also for some of your local stage rigs, you have a trailer rig that you use as a portable stage, and you've gotten some use out of that. Certainly around town. Has that made it? Have you used that out of Michigan?
Not out of state yet, but it's traveled a little bit across the state here and there. It's been up to where Mike used to do the Heatstock Blues Festival
up in Fostoria.
It's been there. It's been down to Dundee, down that way. It's been in Flat Rock. It's maybe done a 50, 60 mile radius. I've never towed it as far as out of state to do anything
yet.
But it gets about 4 or 5 uses a year now, and it's been
good.
It needs to be rebuilt. The decking's rotten on it right now, but it's purposely built to be a stage. It started life as a 1976 Dodge Motorhome.
Oh.
And originally it was a drivable stage. Literally fired up and drove it.
Wow.
And I felt like I was driving a piece of equipment off the tarmac at the airport. Because there was a big round hole in the roof where the cab over used to be for the camper. So when you drive down the road, you got this open cab, and a big round hole before I fixed it. And
you could have called it a moonroof.
Yeah. Big moonroof. And it ran really well. And but I was worried about breaking down.
Yeah.
Because if somebody rents a stage, they want their stage. I don't want to have to worry about breaking down the way. So I turned it into a trailer instead of a drivable stage. And it's been that way for some years now.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst time I have is a flat tire, and it's got dualies, so unless I get 2 flats on the same side, I can just keep one truck and get where I gotta go, So that's the evolution of the portable stage. I never imagined that our studio here would have the relevance it does in the music business in Detroit here. I never imagined the caliber of people that would step into my studio and think it's like it's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
It was started out as like an appreciation party for our people and our customers. And Eric Goebel says, hey, we should do a once a week thing on a Tuesday because nothing's happening on Tuesday. And I'll host this once a week thing and I'll play it and I'll bring in some different players. Well, we did that for a couple of years, and then Eric went to Florida, went on hiatus, so we started just bringing in different bands on our own. And that's how the Tuesday in the Park got started. The Thursday in the Park got started because we had more people wanted to play it than we had space.
Yeah.
And it wasn't built as a money-making venue thing. It just kind of morphed into what it is. And it strictly runs on the tip jar and on our PayPal and we got other avenues we're working on for live streaming and so forth. And the amount of, the first time we did our little benefit, about 4 or 5 months ago, the amount of love I felt from the people, the support from our people, like you brought some paper towels today. People bring us cups and plates, and if our friend Legs puts it on the wish board, I don't care what you put there, it pretty much shows up. I told her, I said, we need a $10,000 grant. Put it on the board. Maybe it'll show up. Everything else has showed up.
And still, even doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, scheduling is a bit of a task. Mike handles most
Mike
of the
handles
scheduling.
the booking. I would not want that job. Now, you can only have one person doing the booking.
Yes.
You can't have multiple people. It's just, you're going to screw it up.
It's not going to work.
And there's so many people want to play our place. And we like to give new bands a chance. We got a young band called Memory Time. There's 3 brothers. They're like 23, 24, 27 or something. And they're more rock and roll than blues. But we let them come play here, and we let them play because we know those guys are the future of it. I mean, face it, we've been losing a lot of our people lately because to attrition and age. I'm not young no more either, and we want to help cultivate that next generation of people coming into this world, with the music world,
So with the roster here, you have a blend of established people with experience, and then you have the younger bands that are bringing that enthusiasm and passion of just getting out and playing.
Right, Mighty Mike.
Yeah.
He's being mentored by Billy Davis. Billy Davis is like this legend. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in the Hank Ballard and Midnighters. He's in the Doo-Wop Hall of Fame. The man's 86-year-old. He still gets up there and throws down. But he's mentoring this guy. He's been mentoring this kid since he was 15 or 16. And he is playing at a level now that there's people that play half their lives and wish they could play at the level this kid is playing at. And I think it's because he's young and he can learn easily. And then we have a couple other, Brendan Lindsay.
And who I understand he mentored under Eric Goebel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got him coming through here once in a while. We just had Buzz Anderson in here last night. He started out with a band called the Frostbite Blues Band that his dad had. And he played in the band. The only reason he played the band because he wasn't going to be in the bar was be there his dad. Now, he was here Tuesday night, last night, with his own Buzz Anderson project. And they threw down. They weren't blues. They were more or less rock and roll, but they threw down. They were great. Their people loved them. And we watched him, come up. Nicky T, the Snake Charmers.
Oh, yeah.
He used to show up with his dad when we had our studio in Hamtramck, which we had for just a spot of time down there. And as a kid, now he's an adult. He's out on the circuit playing and doing very well.
You went down to Memphis.
Yeah.
To represent Detroit in the International Blues Competition.
Yeah. When I go out of town and I see a band or out of state, I'm usually really just disappointed because I am so used to the level of musicianship and what we got here. Mike and I were in Key Marathon, Florida, 15 years ago or so, doing some maintenance on his dad's trailer to work my mom's house in Florida. Excuse me. And we go out to this bar called the Hurricane Bar. There's this band playing. They're really good. We're like, finally, a really good band. The band goes to separate. The guitar player sets his guitar on the stand, walks over and says, Hey, Mike, how you doing? I recorded at your studio. It was a Detroit band.
Pretty cool to be part of a music scene that has.
Yeah, it has clout. You know, I don't know how it is in other towns. Here, you have musicians that will play in multiple bands, and they interchange.
Yeah.
So it gives them more opportunities to play, and it gives whoever's ahead of the band to have a backup if somebody can't do something. And I don't know if there's any other city that has the hospitality for musicians like we do here. We're all comrades in the business. We're not competition so much in the business as we are comrades here. And like we have a band called Cameron Davies, the Vandellas.
And he comes up from Indiana.
Yeah, and they're young guys too.
Yeah.
The first time they came, they were just overwhelmed with the hospitality that they were given. Now we've actually gone gig at Max Dugan's too in the process while Steve's seen him, and I'm sure we can get him more gigs around town. But they were overwhelmed by the hospitality of where they go in Detroit. All these years, Detroit's got such a bad rap. Well, I moved here in 1990 from a small town in Florida, hillbillies, rednecks, and good old boys and hippies. I moved to 6 Mile Augusta City Airport. That's the 9th precinct. At the time, it was the most violent precinct in all the country. So I moved into the belly of the beast. It was culture shock. But I hung around with a little rougher partying crowd in my little town, so I had street smarts. And knowing to survive, I actually thrived down here. I got involved with people that own businesses down because I'm a master carpenter and concrete finisher. I wasn't retired, but I had the skill sets and I had the gift of gab, so I was able to work my way into a little network of people to work for besides my regular job. I've never been a guy who's kept just a regular job. I've always had a side hustle of some sort, you know. So, and I was told by my late buddy, Reverend Sally, he says, you know, you're very fortunate. And I said, well, what are you talking about, Oscar? He says, most white people never, ever, ever experience what it's like to live as a minority. He says, living down here, you are the minority. You're the odd man out. You get to experience what's like, somewhat what it's like to be a black man outside of here. And I never thought about it that way. And it just all hit me like a ton of bricks.
It kind of opens up your eyes to a level of empathy that most people wouldn't be able to understand.
They have no clue the culture of how hard it is to break that mold in the city to make yourself be a success in the city, especially back then. The cultural icons back then for most black men were the drug dealers. They're like, why do I go to McDonald's and make $5, $10 an hour, whatever at the time, where I go sling drugs and make $150 a day or whatever, and have, you know, whatever, nice clothes, and have all these women and blah blah. You know, why? You know, where you know, they just wasn't the role models then that there are now. You know, and it made me understand how hard it was for a black man to make it in this world. How much I was naive to the racism. I experienced it firsthand. I was working for a company. We were doing sidewalk replacement, and I was representing the company for the bid openings and stuff like that. And we got a bid for a pretty influential city here in the metro area. I'm not going to mention the city's name. When they found out that the company was owned by a black minority, they voided the contract. Oh. They didn't know this because they always saw was me. Firsthand, I experienced that.
Oh.
You know, and it stuck in my brain.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
I'm grateful for my experiences. When I first moved here, I remember the third day I was here, I was in 7-Star Grocery at 7 Mile, walking around getting my stuff, and I'm looking down. Look at my white guy in here. I get to the counter, the guy's speaking Arabic behind the counter. I'd never heard Arabic before. I had no clue what. I'm like, what the heck? And I just never looked back. I would have never had the life there that I have here. And the smallest thing you do will affect you in the biggest way sometimes. You just don't know it right away. I was living in Florida. It was 100 degree gray, 100% humidity. I saw a girl walking down the street that I knew. I didn't know her well, but I knew of her. I knew where she was going. She was going the same place I was going. I figured I'd give her a ride. Her name was Nancy. I gave Nancy a ride. We started the game. The grandparents lived here and her dad lived here. The grandparents passed away. I came here to stay in the house with her until they could throw big for it. I couldn't deal with her no more. I went out on my own, and I told you, I'll leave the story out, but I told you about my first day on my own here in Detroit. I'll never forget that. And I got by with the help of my friends. And I was already doing a light show. I was just at AFC. Actually, I was singing with the band and not doing a light show at that time, but I was at the very, very beginning of getting bit by the music bug. And my friends, they put me up and helped me out. You know, I'm still here. I didn't miss a meal, you know. I got to ride a snowmobile for the first time in my life at my buddy's place up north.
Not a lot of snowmobiles in Florida.
No. But back to if I hadn't given her a ride, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be Light Show Bob. This world that my friends and people know through me just wouldn't exist. And I'm sure there'd be some sort of parallel world, but it wouldn't be me.
Opportunities present themselves in unexpected ways.
And it goes back even a little further than this. My first girlfriend, my first love, Donna Kay, she broke up with me in Florida. And years later, I was back visiting, and she was in a wheelchair. She had spinal bifida.
Oh.
And I had one of my Detroit buddies with me. And she says, look, I'll be in my house, and this is where I'm staying at right now. Meet me over there. Just come scoop me up out of the car. The cab's bringing me. So I go to the car, I scoop her up in my arms. She got her keys. She opens up the door. I didn't tell my buddy what was going on. She goes, okay, well, put me on my lap. Put me on your lap. I'm going to sit in that chair over there. And I put her down on my lap, and she's hugging me and kissing me and stuff. My buddy's looking at me like, what the hell's going on here, you know? I asked her, I said, Donna Kay, why did you break up with me? She says, I knew that you were destined for something more than Brooksville, Florida. She said, I didn't know how or why or what, but I knew you were destined. I didn't want you to get trapped in this little town with me. I didn't want you to be Joe Blow Carpenter with 2.5 kids and think I'm trucking a dog. And she knew somehow. Now her mom's supposed to be psychic. I don't know the whole story. She's passed on since then. But the sequence of events to get me here, just the way they fell into the small things. Studio, for example. I was exposed to the medical marijuana grow industry. And I befriended somebody who was kind of big in it, and they liked me because of my honesty and my character and stuff. And he took a chance on me. He says, look, you find a bill, you put together a team, we'll do something. So I put together a team. We had a meeting in Greektown at Five Guys Pizza. I felt like I was brokering this big, weird mafia deal or something like that. And it's really weird. Because we're going by who's going to be responsible for what part of the deal, this and that and the other. Well, after we left, we had to go walk this car to get some weed or something. And I was working at the Golden Fleece remodeling their upper deck at the time. So weed wasn't like legal days. So we were going up there to smoke. And I'm walking through Greektown with these four other guys. And I'm thinking to myself, I feel like a gangster or something here. It's really strange. So we're looking for a place to grow. We see the sign in the window of this place that said, call Larry. Here's the number for rent. Well, for the longest time, Larry was our code name for weed. Like at my buddy's house, we'd say our kids would say, hey, Larry's out in the garage, he wants to talk to you, you know? So his kids wouldn't know what we were doing. One kid says, you know, we always hear about this Larry guy, we never met him. So don't worry, you'll meet him when you get older. So we get the building here. And he says, okay, this is what you need to do, blah, blah, he helped us get the building. Well, part of the reason I got the building the way I did is because that Larry, his guys knew me because of my reputation in Hills Park area. This is 17 years ago. We got the building, we started out.
Long before medical marijuana had been.
No, this is the very beginning.
Just the very
beginning of it. So at first we just had the one half the building. And within a matter of days, we had this room ready for equipment. And my buddy that's back of me is like, man, you guys don't screw around. It was really weird because there's a bunch of offices. And it was the first time I had done something that I'd put together for myself as an adventure that I wasn't doing for somebody else. It was a weird thing. Long story short, he set us up and we got going. Well, that partnership deteriorated. And the one guy, the electrician, was left here. And He couldn't make a go of the building by himself. And he says, I'm losing the building, blah, blah. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I go over to the plumber buddy of mine, and I'm hanging out at Sletsky's house. He has this nice stainless steel cut sign that says, All Stars Plumbing, blah, blah, blah. He says, man, I wish I had a place to hang a shingle out on where I could pull my vehicle in and all my stuff would freeze underneath this minute. I looked at him and I said, I might be able to make that happen. So I talked to the owner of the building, and I talked to the guy that's renting us behind his rent. He says, look, we'll take this over, and we'll start paying you rent, and this guy can work a deal out to pay you back. And me and Mike split the shop with the plumber. Well, the plumber started having these poker parties and shit. And all these people are hanging out on these women and stuff like that. His wife got wind of it and said, look, either you leave the shop or I'm leaving you. So Mike and I end up with the one half of the shop. On the other half was an N-scale railroad. Massive, massive model railroad.
Oh.
And I'm a train guy, so I used to have some HO, I still got it.
How cool
So I'd
is
go
that?
there and hang out with him and stuff. And the one guy says, yeah, we got a lease here, but we want to get out of the lease because we got a really cheap space downtown we want to go to. I said, well, here's what I can do. So I went and talked to the owner and explained the situation. He was like, sure. I'd rather see you guys have the whole building anyways. Because we were worried if we didn't have this half, who might come in here and what we had to deal with for a neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, these guys were cool, but, you know, who was going to come?
Yeah.
So we got the whole building, and the guys, the landlord, my buddy Glenn says, look, why don't we just put you in a contract? You can buy this building from us in a contract. So we got the whole building, and we put it in a contract. And I'm happy to say, here real shortly, we get to burn the mortgage. We will have it paid off my time. All we have to do is worry about the taxes.
In about 17, 18 years, you've gone
in 12 years.
Oh, 12 years
12
from the time
years
you got into the land contract?
Yep. Maybe 10, 12 years from the time we got it. We always paid him cash. We always paid him on time. He's a great guy. I don't know where I'd be without my friend right now. He's helped me finance a house and stuff like that. He's been very patient with me.
Excellent.
Because things have been very hard since the medical marijuana went away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm more dependent on my light show to make a living than it ever was before. And it has its days. It has its days.
And fortunately, you've been doing it long enough where you have a name established for yourself. So
I have a reputation that if you book me for a show, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna bring a proper show, and I'm gonna do it right. I'm gonna try to look sharp on stage. Because I'm the only light show guy that I know of in this world that has a light tar and is on stage.
I think you're the only person on this planet that has a light tar.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
So far.
So far. Well, my goal is I want there to be tens of thousands of people with light tars. I want to be other light tars. I want them to experience what I've experienced. The power of the lighting, people don't understand it until you've actually felt it. I was working with a jazz band at Club Bar. I hijacked the band. The band literally followed the light show. I brought the lights up, the band came, I brought the lights down. I did it like 3 times, just to make sure that I was leading them. And then I brought the lights all the way down enough in the dark and the band stopped. The keyboard player looked at the drummer, and the drummer looked at the keyboard player, and the bass guy looked at, and they all looked at each other. Like, well, no, wait. I said, they're like, that's one of the times I really felt the power of the lighting. Another time, I was at Hamlin's Pub with Daisy McCullers Jr. in his jazz band, and he had a bass player. And normally we're just like a jukebox in the corner. The people out there didn't pay no attention to the bass, no matter how good you were or whatever. Well, the bass guy goes into a solo, and I start to follow with the lighting, and he catches on. He looks at me and goes, okay. And I just made the lights match what he was doing instantaneously. And he kept building, and I kept building with the lights. And the audience took notice, and people walked over, and they're all like, you know. And at the end, I brought the lights down, we stopped, and everybody applauded and stuff like that, you know. And that was another time where it was a revelation. It was, you know,
It's another layer to the entertainment experience.
I work in the visual realm versus
Yeah.
the art. I take what I hear and transfer it to what I think it should look like. I used to worry about the photographers, the video people. Lately, I've said, you know what? My first duty is to the people that are sitting in that audience there watching that show. If it requires low lighting for the mood, I'm going to do low lighting for the mood. They can wait till the lights come up and take a picture later.
Yeah.
It took me a while to. And plus, I was always timid about it. Now I've got enough confidence. I'd say, well, screw that. I want to, you know, I want to make it look good. I may not have made a whole lot of money in my career, but I've always done it on my terms. And there's a lot to be said for that, for happiness to not be working through. I mean, I've ran lights at the Majestic Theater. Nice for them down there. I had 60,000 watts of good old-fashioned car cans available to me, and it was a blast. And they said they'd never seen anybody driving lights the way I did. We're on set break, and they were playing some Herbie Hancock music, and I'm just jamming on the lights, man. And the people are like, well, you know, they come up and told me I had to stop because the band was afraid I was going to not do a good light show for them. I haven't put that. I got to make sure that one gets in my book because that was
Absolutely.
The first thing I did when I go in there is this big chunker power switch. It was one of like 10 that they had because that was an old school 1920s theater at one time.
Yeah.
And they used massive lighting in theaters back in the day. They had to.
Yeah.
For live stuff. So the first thing I do is I took this thing and go, shook, to turn the power on and then go adjust my lighting. And, you know, it was. I had a lot of fun. They called me maybe twice a month to come run their show, and I really loved it.
And it must have been cool to be playing, you know, to be doing lights in a theater that now is nearly 100 years old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And just to have 60,000 watts of this big board at my control. Now all I have is bar cans, but it didn't matter. That was just, and I was on this crow's nest up above the just below where the balcony seating would have been back in the day.
That was probably built around the time the theater was put up.
Yeah, well, no, the crow's nest was like where they had their beer stand and all that.
Oh, okay.
Now, what was behind it was all the next layer of balcony seating. Well, they didn't use it because people don't know this, but the Majestic Theater, the whole front part of it got cut off and they widened woodwork.
Yes. Yeah.
And it moved all the walls back. So it made it where that seating up there wasn't accessible. I peeked behind the curtain. It was all back there still, but it was just in the dark, you know, abandoned. One day, my attorney buddy shows up. he's like a black guy. He's kind of like a George Jefferson guy. Really cool, great, good friend of mine. He says, "Light show." He said, "Man, I just love living days of your life, man." I said, "Man, I never want to live a day in your life, man." Because I never want to be an attorney. And my moral values aren't good enough to be a preacher. Because he was also a preacher at a Methodist church. He still is, as a matter of fact. He's still a good friend of mine. He's doing very well for himself. So, a good friend of mine. So, but it's been a journey.
Yeah.
It really has. And this has been, maybe you can pan around before we're done. This has been a 12 years in the process of evolution here.
I think now the music is burned into the walls.
If not, all the beer signs and the antiques are.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up and kind of pan around.
Yeah.
Some of the.
I'm just trying to think if there's anything. You know, I guess for my closing take, I'm patent pending my light art.
All right.
I'm talking to a couple different lighting companies. My next move is I'm going to go start knocking on some doors of some Detroit capitalist venture people that want to do good things for Detroit. I want to see my light tower assembled here. I want to see it assembled by Detroiters. And I want to see the box say assembled in Detroit. One of my people has some contacts at Third Man Records. We're supposed to see what we can do to get me a sit down with.
That would be pretty cool.
Because that might be a prime candidate for somebody that would really be interested in. Because I know when I get this thing on the market, I get into these younger guys in their hands. I mean, let's face it, cats our age, we're kind of closed-minded. It took me, it was a battle for me to be where I'm at on stage because the light show guy on stage is never heard of. They didn't get it. They get it now. I'm in demand. They understand. This people flat out didn't like what I did. Now they're my supporters because they see the light, as they say. But I want to get this into the hands of the younger generation, and I want to see thousands of light cars, and I want to make sure all those light cars come out of Detroit. That's my goal.
And that could become your legacy.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to be rich. I know people watching this probably say, hey, that's crazy. Why would everybody wants to be rich? I don't want to be rich. I just want to have enough money to pay my bills, to have a decent vehicle and have a house and not have a bunch of worries. I don't need to be rich. I just want to
have a vehicle that'll get your light show where it needs to go.
and not worry about where my next bill, how I pay my next bill, and not worry if the vehicle breaks down, am I going to have to fix it myself? I can just pay somebody to fix it or whatever, you know. And I'll say this. If something does happen and I do come into a lot of money, which I've been told that I'm going to by a couple people that are like psychic or whatever, I don't know, but if I do, I'll use a portion of that money to do as much and the best I can for the rest of the world around me as I can. Because I'm not missing no meals now, and I won't miss no meals then. You know, and I would like to leave a legacy, something that's going to outlast me, and people are going to say, hey, you know, that guy did some good with what he had, you know. And I want to go on tour. That's on my bucket list. And I can't say the name of the band, but there's a band that's a local blues band. They are like number 5 on the blues rack, Sirius Radio. I did a show with Max Dugan's. The guy called me 3 days later. He says, hey, Bob, do you have a passport? I said, no. He says, well, you might need to get one. I said, why? He says, well, we're going on a tour across North America, and we want to see if we can take you with us on tour. I said, if that works well, we might go to Europe.
Awesome.
If you get to see this thing, and you part of that phone call, let me tell you, I was trying not to let the man know my heart was about to jump out of my chest because it's on my bucket list. And about a week or so before this all went down, I was walking out of my house, and I told my wife, I said, I wish I could just be Light Show Bob 24/7. I have to get up at 6:30 in the morning and make enough money to pay my bills and live comfortably and have a few things in life. I just wish if I could just do that. Well, I might be getting a step closer to that, and
that would be excellent.
My ultimate goal, you know. I have a day job. I work for the city of Hazel Park. I drive their senior bus for Parks and Rec. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my old people. They love me. And they are very grateful for what we do and the fact that I'm there.
I'm sure they are, yeah.
If I didn't have to go to work until 10 o'clock every morning, that'd be fine. But I don't like getting up at 6:30 in the morning. I'm a night person. I'm a musician. I'm not a musician, but I've been working in the music industry. Yeah. And I'm a night person, and I don't like getting up at 6:30. So you guys, if you see this, root for me on that.
We'll be rooting for you.
No, thank you. And I mean, that's about it, you know. I just love what I do. When I'm on stage, all my daily worries and thoughts in the world, all my bills, all the BS politically and everything else that's going on in the world, none of that's in my mind. It's just that music, that moment in time, that note, just the pure joy of being there. And I look out at the audience, if they're entranced in the music and they've forgotten about all that stuff that's going on in the outside world for a while, I've done my job. Because we all need to get taken away from all that once in a while. Yeah. And I think once we're taken away from once in a while, when we have to go back and deal with what we deal with a little bit clearer in the head, at least I know I do. And I feel better about myself, and it helps me look at things in a better way sometimes. And if I could do that for people, that's my biggest...
It definitely brings something to the music community, so...
Yeah, well, I work in the visual realm, basically, but some people say I make the band sound better. And I'm like, well, how the hell do I make the band sound better? It's just play. They pull out more of their ability to play, and they try to play better because they're inspired by the way.
It's true. Yeah.
And I think if you come to our place and you see a performance here, you're going to see performances out of these people that you won't see at a festival or even a big, huge show, because they know the people that come here are here for the music. They're not here as a social scene at the bar or something. They're here to see the band that's playing. They're here for the music, the food, and the camaraderie.
It's an enthusiastic audience. It's one of the best light shows in the country.
Oh, no, man. There's guys that have some way more sophisticated shit.
Mike has been running live sound for decades. And it's just a cool thing.
And we get some phenomenal recordings.
Yeah.
That room doesn't look like this, but we've had some phenomenal recordings out of that room.
It's primarily community supported.
Runs on a tip jar.
The TIPP runs on the tip jar.
We're a licensed recording studio. The only one I know of that's licensed in all of Hazel Park.
PayPal, Venmo, Cash App if you can't make it in person.
Yep. And then there's always TITP live on YouTube.
The TITP live
you can
on
watch
Tuesday.
it live on a Tuesday or Thursday night,
Yep.
and you can look at anything that's archived.
And you can find what's happening if you go to TITP, if you know, on Facebook.
Yep. I was just watching today at work because I have no radio in my bus I'm driving from Scenes right now. I was watching and listening to Tosh Owens' show when she was here.
Yeah.
When Mr. Kerman,
Yeah.
the Spinners came in and sang.
Awesome.
That, so, yeah, check us out, support us. Come get entranced by the lighting. Come take yourself away from reality. Have an LSB trip with you. I always tell people,
that was LSB trip.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always tell people, if you've never done acid, if you come to one of my shows where it's a more psychedelic show, it's as close as you can get to what it's like to do acid without actually doing acid. So, come check me out.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.